as I said, there's some areas that policies cannot reach. And this is one thing I think is really, really important. The government tends to get the blame for things when they don't, in population terms, when things don't go as they should do. And they seem to be like they're the primary responsibility. They have the primary responsibility for this. The fact of the matter is, you spend a lot more time interacting with your boss than you do the government. Yeah? That the private sector, employers, have got just as big a role, in fact, I would say a more important role to play in supporting people's aspirations in terms of work and life, work and family balance than the government ever can. And actually, they can do it in a proactive way. We move into a situation where, in the late 20th century, we had lots and lots of people. And all we wanted people to be was healthy and have a bit of education. So we could put them to work, yeah, and make things and make stuff to send all around the world. Now our economy is completely different, right? Taiwan, Britain, Hong Kong, we don't really make a lot of stuff anymore, yeah? We have a service sector, yeah? We need to prize higher order production, yeah? And so getting and keeping the right people is really, really critical, rather than just having loads and loads of people coming through the system. So that's why we also need to think indirectly about this, yeah? If people are saying, well, I would like to have more children, but I have to spend so much money on tutoring, so my child can get a better chance to go to this particular university, so he or she can then get a better chance to get this or that particular job. Yeah? Well, then the whole system might be wrong, you might say, Why is it necessary to have all of these cram schools and tutoring schools? Yeah? Why not just invest more heavily in the education system as it is, right? Or reform the systems for getting into university. About housing or labour rights, even elder care policy. I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but you might say, well, I'd like to have another child, but I've got to take care of my parents and my parents-in-law. So if the government comes in and says, well, I'll tell you what, don't worry, we'll take care of your parents. We'll take care of your parents-in-law. Yeah? Now, you could say, well, then that just creates another problem, because that means that the government has got to then invest more in long-term care or whatever. But of course, the reality is that the kind of diseases that our parents and grandparents are going to be having over the next, and we're going to be having over the next century, is not going to be something that we as children are going to be able to take care of adequately. There will need to be more institutional and government support. So my argument is that we can do all of these things, and we should be doing all of these things, but we shouldn't be doing it just to increase the fertility rate. Yeah, we should be doing it because it's kind of like the right thing to do, and it's what people say that they would like. Yeah. It's about what the government and what people and what private sector should be doing it. And I think it would probably, actually, if we did all of these things, which people say, well, this is the reasons why I feel I don't have the number of children I would like to have, then by definition, you would expect fertility to go up a bit. But that's not the reason why we should do it. We should just do it because it's in line with what people want. Now, of course, you may say, Stuart, it's very informal, you can call me Stuart, that's very kind. Stuart, you're crazy, crazy man. This is never going to happen, right? It's too big, it's too complicated, right? It's too messy, right? It's too radical. But of course, the thing is, it's been done before, right? In terms of in the European system, why was the Swedish welfare state brought in? Yeah, we all know that Sweden has a very, very generous welfare system. Big, a lot of state intervention in different areas, a lot of various different activities. Very high emphasis on gender equality, maternity leave, whatever. This was brought in between the war because fertility was very low, because they were worried about very low fertility, and they wanted to get more women into work. Yeah, to drive industrial growth, to drive economic growth. It happened before, but we've just forgotten about it. This was a pro-fertility policy. In France has kind of a high fertility rate. Yeah, and there's a very interesting article in your brochures here about this. And this again is because of emphasis upon gender roles around protection, labour protection, but also this idea that if you want to have children, if you have children, then we're going to support you. We're on your side. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're a single mom. It doesn't matter if you're a same-sex union. It doesn't matter if you're divorced, remarried, whatever. Right? You're having a child. And part of that, and that child is a citizen of France and will be a citizen of France in the future, and we will support that. Yeah? It's very difficult for me as an Englishman to say this, but the French have got it right, okay? And I think that we could move to a situation where if we've got fewer and fewer young people, you know what? I don't think we can be picky about what kind of families we're going to support and what kind of families we're not going to support. Yeah? I think we should see children as a social good. And of course, so it's not, I'm not just saying that it's not just happened in Europe, oh, this is a long way away, right? This is in Sweden or France. You know what? It happened here as well. And it happened in all other places in this part of the world that we can learn from family planning programs, yeah? Fertility in Taiwan, the 1950s and 60s was extremely high, 6 or 7 kids, right? And what happened? It came down. Maybe it came down a bit too far for some people, but it came down very, very quickly. And how did it happen? It didn't just happen because someone gave along and gave some condoms to men or the pill to women. It didn't happen like that. That's a linear way of thinking about this. It happened because the aspirations of people were aligned with the policy. There was a comprehensive, very, very comprehensive family planning policy, family planning system. But also lots of other things happened as well. The economy grew, the economy changed, you know, urbanization, development, education, female rights, etc., etc. So all of these things were aligned. And the outcome was that fertility declined. Now, of course, that wasn't the reason why China, you know, Taiwan industrialized, wasn't to lower fertility, but it was because the expectations, what people wanted, were aligned with this family planning program. People wanted to have fewer children, so all of these policies together drove through fewer children. Yeah? So maybe in the future, if people want to have more children, we could do a similar thing. And as I say, Taiwan, another thing we should be proud of in Taiwan, Taiwan had one of the most comprehensive and one of the most successful family planning programs in the world. People would come from all over the world to come and see what was happening in Taiwan, right? And be going to see and how this can be applied to other parts of the world. So it can be done. It can be done in a radical way. Now, of course, the government system was a bit different back then than it is today, but that's not to say that we can't aspire to these kinds of changes. And if we go back to this is our kind of, I would say Bible, but this view of the kind of family planning world that we say, that what family planning should be about is about enabling people to, meet their own individual aspirations, right? To respect the dignity of all persons and their right to choose the number, spacing, timing, and birth of their own children. Now, in the past, this has always been to support people to have fewer children, yeah? Through support, because in many countries, sub-Saharan Africa, for example, people say they want to have fewer children than they have. But there's no reason why we can't turn this around and say, well, if you want more children than you have, then we can support you in order to do this. So, to conclude, and I know the front row is going to be very glad because they're worried I'm going to go over, but I think I'm going to be on time here, right? So, when we think of the traditional population problem of aging and decline and stagnation, you know what? We can fix that, I think, because we've got lots of other dimensions we can draw upon, yeah? Lots of different policies. Not just about making you feel guilty or forcing people or encouraging people to have more children, but through other different ways, through productivity, reform, and so on. And actually, Taiwan has got good policies. It's going on the right way, without a doubt. One of the best in the region, I would say. The real problem, then, is that aspirations are not being met. And this is this kind of issue with the gap as an indicator of between what people would like to do and what people would actually want. Yeah, and the thing is, you know, I mean, I might say I want to buy a Ferrari, right, or want to drive in F1 as an aspiration, and I can't do that. Yeah, it's not really the government's job to certainly not in Hong Kong. The government don't really do anything, but it's not the government's job to step in and say, okay, sure, I'm going to help you become an F1 driver, right? This is a bit more basic than that. It's like, I've got an aspiration to kind of live in my own house or to have children. It's not really asking the world, is it? And I think the governments can really do that. And so we should have more of a rights-based approach for a better society. But my postscript is that it's not going to last forever. It may not last forever. At the moment, we're in a good policy space because people say they want to get married, right? People say they want to have 2 children. People say they want to combine work and family. It's not guaranteed to last forever, right? That if situations and circumstances stay bad for a long time, then people's normative views, people's attitudes will change. And we're already starting to see that in Hong Kong, yeah? That fertility preferences are now falling below 2. People don't want to have 2 children anymore. People are saying they want to have 1 child. Now, in mainland China, of course, they've got an even bigger problem because they would say, many people say they want to have 1 child. And of course, a lot of that is the legacy of the birth control restrictions over the last 30 years. So in China, mainland China, they're going to find that very, very, very difficult. So I would argue that we don't have a lot of time to waste on this. Demography tends to be a slow-burning issue, right, in terms of fertility and mortality and whatever. But I don't think we've got any time to waste. I think we've got to get on with this now. And believe me, being where we are in Taiwan with the lowest fertility rate, or one of the lowest fertility rates in the world, for that reason alone, because of this gap between aspiration and reality, that's not really where we want to be, I would say. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention.